Dear family, welcome to the starting point. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have known each other for quite a while, but actually this will be the first time we have a more profound conversation.
Yes.
Well, your dresses are so beautiful and colorful and appealing. Do they tell a story?
Yes, we are from Nigeria. I was born in Nigeria, and I came to the United States when I was 4.
Just for...
Yes.
Mm.
And my wife came to the United States after I married her. But we're from the Igbo tribe, which is one of the main ethnic groups in Nigeria.
Located in what part of the Nigeria is
The
huge?
southeast.
The southeast.
Of Nigeria.
Mhm. So, you started, but maybe you'd like to add a little more, about your dress. It reflects your origins, the family, the ethnic group.
Well, this one is not one of the ones that reflects a specific ethnic group.
Mhm.
Yeah. It is anyone from any tribe can really wear this.
Yes.
Yes. So our ethnic dress is a little bit different. The women wear two wrappers and a blouse on top of it, and then a headpiece, just like I'm wearing. for the
And
different material.
when would a lady wear a dress like that, like this?
Well, this one we wear generally when we go out, when we go to church or to functions. Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
You came as a child here.
Yes, I
What
did.
were the situation determining your family?
So, my mother is from the country of Liberia, and my father is from Nigeria.
Oh,
And they met when they were in nursing school. There was a dentist nursing school in Isialangwa, in Ife, in Nigeria. And they met in the 1960s. And there was a civil war in Nigeria in the 1960s. And so, because my mother was from another country, they left Nigeria and moved to Liberia.
oh,
And then from Liberia, they decided to come to the United States.
wow.
So my parents came together as during the war, and then they decided to come to the United States as a family.
Can you give a little more context of the civil war in Nigeria at that time? Because, more recently, Liberia was much more in the news
Yes.
for, yeah.
So Nigeria became an independent country in the late 1950s, and there were always disputes between the countries, the tribes that lived in Nigeria. So there are Hausas and Yorubas and Igbos, which we come from. And at one point, the Igbos decided they wanted to create their own country. And the other people in the country did not like that. And so there was a conflict that was the Biafran War.
The
Biafra was the country that they wanted to form as part of the secession.
Finally, it didn't.
It didn't happen. It did not happen. They had a blockade, so the country did not let food or shipments into.
So they couldn't
Igbo.
survive.
They
Yeah.
couldn't survive.
I
There
mean,
was-
it was a real famine, a terrible
There was a
famine.
terrible famine in the Biafran War. So
So that was your tribe, your...
yes, yes.
What is the situation now? Did the wounds, have they
I think the wounds have healed.
healed? Yeah.
There are still problems in Nigeria, but there's no active conflict. So we thank God for that.
Religiously speaking, your tribe was Christian?
Many of the people in our part of Nigeria, in the Igbos, were Christians.
Yes.
And so when when people from Britain came to Nigeria,
Yes.
they set up missionary schools in Nigeria. And so many of the people in the East became Christians.
Like the Anglican tradition?
Correct.
maybe? Yeah.
Anglican.
Yeah.
your family of origin, were they still Anglicans or they were already Adventists?
My parents became Adventists. So my father was the first Adventist in his country, in his family,
I see.
and my
Do you
mother was
know?
also.
Do you know a little more about the story of the
Yeah, so
conversion?
in Nigeria, if you wanted to go to school, people knew that the best schools were Adventist schools.
Really?
And so people who went beyond teacher training or went into nursing, they went to Adventist schools and Adventist academies as well. And so my father became an Adventist when he was at a boarding school in high school, and that's when he became an Adventist. And my mother the same way. In Liberia, there were teaching schools and there were training schools and academies, and she became an Adventist when she was in academy.
Very interesting. Do you know about the reaction of the family when they made these changes?
It's interesting because in both my father's family and my mother's family, once they became Adventist, many of the other people in the family also became Adventists.
Very interesting. At this time, the Adventist Church in Nigeria is very, very large. Yeah.
Very large. And in the 60s, there was a large contingent of missionaries who left their homes here in the United States. They lived in Nigeria for years and years. Some of them had children born in Nigeria, and they were instrumental in creating the schools and the churches in eastern Nigeria.
Yeah. Do you still have any memories from your first years of life that was in Liberia?
The only memory I have as a child is from Liberia. And I remember we were in church and someone was getting baptized. That's my first memory. And so that's my earliest memory. Most of my memories obviously came after I was 4 years old when I came to the United States.
Do you remember the trip from Nigeria? It was directly to the States?
Yes, yes. Well, that was the first time I was ever on a plane.
Sure. So you have memories of that?
So I do remember that. And I remember my father had come to the United States a year before we came. My sister was just a baby. My brother was 2 years old and I was 4. And so my sister and my brother, they really didn't know their father. He'd left a year before,
yes.
and they were children. But I remembered my father. And so at the airport, I remember I was looking and looking, and I finally saw my father. I remembered him.
Well, of course you had memories, but probably his huge smile also looking at you helped a little bit. Yeah. So you came as refugees?
Yes.
Yes.
We came as refugees. In fact,
refugees.
because of the way that I left Nigeria, we had to leave during the war. And so I actually didn't have a passport when I left Nigeria to get to Liberia.
Oh.
And there were agreements that other countries had with people who were refugees coming to Liberia and other parts of West Africa. So actually my passport that I came to the United States from Liberia
It's a Liberian.
is from Côte d'Ivoire.
Wow.
So,
Quite complicated.
yeah.
I hope your early story is not that dramatic.
No.
Yeah, sure.
I was born during the war, so I don't really remember much of the war. I remember it may have been after the war, and there were like relief agencies, and my first memory was when they had like families come, and then we kind of line up to wait to receive clothes, food, and water, and things like that from the relief agencies. My mom would take us, or other family members would take us, and each family has to be represented, and they count the number of people from the family, and they hand out these things.
The whole family had to be there
Correct.
to get according to their numbers.
Yes, that's what I remember at least, And then they'll hand this thing, and it was nice to get, a new pair of shoes, and some of them, some of the boxes would have like toys in them, yeah. And so that was really my only memory of that time. And I remember we lost relatives. My mom
Really?
lost her brother during the war. He never came back from the war. And then, you know, other relatives, some young women from who are related to my dad were gone. Years later, we found out they were taken by some military people from the northern part of Nigeria. I don't know, maybe as wives or whatever. So it took years before, you know, we started hearing from some members of the family who went missing during that war. But that's the only thing I remember about the war.
You are from the same...
We're from the same tribe and the
Yes.
same clan. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah. So the Igbo tribe has many different clans. So they share the same language, but the clan is a smaller group.
Has a little bit of a different dialect. Yeah. So
Are there some deeply ingrained or rooted principles or values which are maybe different from other ethnic groups in Nigeria with your tribe, with your clan? Are you aware of anything specific?
no, I mean the language is different,
Yes.
and I guess the name of God. Each tribe has a specific name for God, and the cultures are basically a little bit similar. Dressing, of course, is different. If you see a Yoruba, you know Yoruba by the way they dress. Igbos by the way they dress, and Hausas the same, apart from the language. But Christians in general, you know, tend to have the same values.
I see.
Yeah.
One of the things that's interesting is if you look at the Igbos, particularly in the 1950s and 60s, after Nigeria became an independent country, because of the way that the Europeans came to Nigeria, many of the Igbos were educated in the, in the ways of Europe.
Yeah,
So,
Western.
so many of them
education.
became traders and
teachers,
teachers.
nurses, you know.
and they went throughout the country
Correct.
at that point as well.
I see. So they colonized in a way
Yes, yes.
the rest of the country.
That was part of the issue with the Civil War as well. One of the precursors for the Civil War was that many of the people who were Igbos in other parts of Nigeria, they wanted them to go back to Igbo land.
They were kind of envy.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. They had education, so they were civil servants. And so they were working in different parts of the country as civil servants. And then the local...
So they were perceived like dominant
Yeah.
in a way, richer, smarter,
Smarter, exactly. And
and
so,
people tended to distrust them or to think that
It
they are
was-
taking our wealth.
Exactly. It was jealousy.
yeah. But it's just the way it happened. I remember I heard stories, of course, of the first American missionary that came to eastern Nigeria, Pastor Jesse Clifford. And he came to the eastern Nigeria in 1920, I believe. He came to a place called Apua in River State. And then he made way to the Ngwaland, our own part, in 1922, sometime around there. And the beautiful thing about this American missionary is, when he came, he did not only start Seventh Adventist churches, he actually started Seventh Adventist schools.
Yes.
And so I think the first school, they had like 4 schools. One at the Isiugwu-Aba headquarters, which is the later became the East Nigerian Conference of Seventh Adventists, the headquarters. So there was a school there. There was another school at Umuobiakwa. Then there was another school at, I think, Umuakbara. And then there was one more school, I can't remember the name of the place. But the beautiful thing with him is that he not only started churches, he made sure he started schools. And so people could send their children to school. Even some adults were able to go to night schools and learn. Yes, they learned to at least read the local language and write. And so they could read the Bible. Because my grandparents were like that. They were not really, literally, they were not educated and in Western ways, but they could read our Igbo Bible. and then understand the Bible. So that was very important. So Pastor Jesse Clifford had a vision. He not only started school, he also helped to start some of the hospitals. The first Adventist hospital that was started at Opualangwa, in Isialangwa, your own local government, actually. My dad worked there.
Really?
Yes. So it was started, my dad was there when this hospital was started with a pastor, Dr. Sharman Negel, who was a missionary too, who taught them at the nursing school at Ife, where his parents went to nursing school. My parents went to the same nursing school.
Oh,
and he officiated at my parents' wedding.
Oh, my.
Yes. And so when they started the hospital, he took my dad with him to Ubualangwa General Hospital, and they started the hospital. But shortly after the hospital was started, the Civil War broke out.
Oh.
Yes, so he had to leave because they evacuated Americans. And so he had to leave, and then he handed over the care of the hospital to my dad. And then my dad said he packed up the instruments and equipment of the hospital, and they had to hide them during the war to just protect them and safeguard things. But that was interesting, yeah. And
the other thing that's interesting is that my wife said that these missionaries came to Nigeria as early as the 1920s, and what they found that was important was translating the Bible into the local language.
Sure.
So there has been a Igbo Bible since
for a very long time.
So the language is also, at that time already, it had a written version.
Correct.
Using what alphabet? The regular alphabet, the Latin alphabet, or a different alphabet?
It's a different alphabet.
It's different. I don't know much about it, though.
Probably it's no longer used now.
It is.
It is.
Yes, it is.
So
It
there are
is still
different
used.
consonants and different
Vowels. Yeah. Than the English language. So it's a little bit different from the English language. So yeah, that was very nice.
Would you like to say something in your language? Something like John 3:16, or I don't know, or
Yeah, John 3:16 is, in English, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. In Igbo is n'ihi na Chineke hụrụ ụwa n'anya otu a, na o nyere ọbụna ọkpara ọ mụrụ naanị ya, ka onye ọbụla nke kwere na ya wee ghara ịla n'iyi, kama ka o nwee ndụ ebighị ebi.
oh, it's very melodious, very harmonious.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I actually, the first time I learned to read Mayan language. My grandmother, my mother's mother, taught me to read the Bible. And the first time, once I learned the letters, and the alphabets and the sounds, then she was teaching me to read the Igbo Bible. And I still remember Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. And so it was really nice. She taught me to read the Bible. And so before I could go to school, I could.
What about school? So you were of school age during the war?
No, I was
No.
born.
Yeah. So by the time to go to school, the war was over.
Over, correct. But I wasn't privileged to go to Adventist schools like my parents were, because after the war, the government took over all the
Private
Christian or
schools.
private schools, correct. Yeah, so I never went to an Adventist school. I never did.
What memories do you have from school?
Oh, my elementary school was a few miles from home, and we would walk. And I remember the first time I went to school, must have been kindergarten. I think we have a different name for them. And then I carried a little board, the chalkboard, a small one that you put in a bag. You carry with you to school, and they teach you. But the interesting thing for me is that I could really read and write at least my language. And so I remember the first day I went to school, the teachers were surprised. And so they pulled me aside, and they said, oh, don't come back with the board again tomorrow. Ask your mom to buy you exercise books, so, yeah, and pencils. Exactly. Exactly. But it was my grandmother who never actually attended school. She only went to the night schools. The missionaries were, putting together to learn to speak Igbo. And so she could speak Igbo, and she could write, and she could read the Igbo Bible. That was the only education that she got. Yeah.
What other memories do you have from the family? What was the type of the family? How were the relations between men and women, between fathers and mothers, and parents and children? Try to give us some pictures of the life.
So
as it used
my
to be.
family, a little bit interesting. My grandparents, I remember very well clearly my grandfather, my paternal grandfather and paternal grandmother, as well as my maternal grandparents. They were considered hidden. And my grandfather, my father's father, became converted to Anglican faith. And then he later, around the time of Jesse Clifford, became an Adventist. And so married my grandmother, I think sometime around maybe 1922. My grandmother was also from considered a hidden family. So, but after marriage, she converted and became Adventist and joined my grandfather in the Adventist church. And so, but just because of the culture in those days, my grandfather later married a second wife.
So that was still part of the culture.
That was still part of the
very much
culture.
so.
Yes, so he had 2 wives. So my father was raised in a polygamous family and all that comes with it.
Like
not very easy. A lot of
tensions.
contention. Yes, a lot of tensions. And then my grandfather.
Excuse me, were you aware of that at that time?
Yes, because my grandfather died in 1974.
Oh.
And still left the 2 wives. Yeah, so I remember vividly some of the issues that used to come up. And my grandfather, I believe that the church disciplined him. Then he later got rebaptized. I'm not sure how long it took, but it wasn't long after the rebaptism, maybe a year or 2 when he passed. Yes, when he passed away. So, but to be rebaptized, the church made him, the leaders at the time, I guess, made him, he had to choose one of the wives and not the other. And then he chose the younger wife. And then
Quite complicated.
quite complicated, and left my grandmother, who was his first wife, actually. And so there was some problems there as well. But my father was the first son of his father, a polygamous family. He had 2 sisters of his, and then maybe like 5 or 6 half brothers and sisters, yeah.
There are
And so-
tensions between the children from different mothers. as
Correct,
well.
correct. Just like, when you read the story of Jacob
Yes,
and his
And the other
children.
thing is that we live in compounds. We live,
live in
in
compounds.
villages.
Yeah.
So the people
We
are
all live
all
together.
Yeah.
So, there are huts, for different people, but we all live together. But my father did very well. I actually admire him a lot. After the father died in 1974, he became the head of the family. So he tried to pull the family together. He was already a nurse at the time, a nurse anesthetist and working. So he helped even his half brothers and sisters, putting them through elementary school. And some of them learned some became apprentices, and then learned some cabinetry and welding. And then some of them went to high school. So he did try his best to kind of pull the family together.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So you have quite a heritage.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, I do.
What were your ideas about education, future work, career?
So education was very important to my parents.
Yes.
I could tell both of them, are nurses. My mom, a nurse midwife, retired. My dad, a nurse anesthetist, retired. And so they wanted us to go to school. And so they sent us to school. From elementary school, your parents pay tuition. It's not free education in Nigeria. So they really did work hard. And my parents had 7 children, and I am the second of 7. And 1 passed away, so 6 alive now. And so all of us went through elementary school, high school, and post-secondary education.
Really? So they had to pay for all of you?
Correct, correct.
So
That was
basically,
challenging.
challenging?
That was
or-
very
Well,
challenging.
when you became older, you paid for your younger siblings.
Yes, we
also.
helped out. That's
That
how.
was the way to do?
Correct. That's just, we believe in familism, not in individualism,
Yes, yes.
so they kind of help you, kind of prop you up a little bit, and then you begin to help your parents as well with your younger siblings. And so that's what it is. But yeah, both my parents are in the medical field. I picked interest in the medical field
Yes.
from a very young age.
Yes.
Yes, from a very young age. I was the one that used to help my dad. My mother had a maternity in our house, in our compound. Yes, and my dad as well. They had what we consider a dispensary. And so when people have, injuries
Yes.
and aches and pains and whatever, they come to my parents. So my parents are well known in our community for their medical work. So they give first aid, and things like that. And if things are a little bit too severe, my dad will often put them in his car. Finally got a car sometime when I was in high school. Put them in a car and drive them a few miles to get to the hospital.
So you're helping your father.
Yes, I used to
You
help
have
my mother and
the-
my father. Correct.
The
Correct.
strength, the guts to...
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're
I used to
not
help them.
afraid by
I wasn't
by
afraid.
blood
My
and-
siblings were. Some of my siblings were, but I wasn't. For some reason, I wasn't. But it wasn't the same though, because when I finally went into nursing school, I realized I was like, oh my goodness, it's a whole different ball game, So, yeah.
The nursing school was good, was really, preparing you thoroughly for the job.
Yes.
It was an Adventist?
No,
No.
It was at the compound of the same Adventist
Really?
nursing school my parents and his parents went to. But it was taken
interesting.
over by the government.
And even, never returned.
It has been returned.
After
So
that.
after I left, so my two younger sisters
Really?
went to the same nursing school, but then they went to an Adventist nursing school.
Yeah, so it's Adventist first, then
Government,
first.
and then
They
Adventist.
returned to the
They returned them
Adventist.
to the Adventist church later. So my sisters went to Adventist nursing school, Ileife. But when I went there, it was called, University of Ife, Obafemi Awolowo University Hospitals, teaching hospital, School of Nursing. So that's what it was when I went. So my certificate has a different name.
And you began also practicing nursing in Nigeria?
Yes, I worked, when I graduated from nursing school, I worked for a year.
For a year.
And then I went back to do midwifery, nurse midwifery program. Yes, and then I met him when I was in the nursing school, in the midwifery school rather, about to graduate when we met.
You have lots to catch up. So you came with the family.
Yes.
Do you have, besides the memory from the airport, recognizing your father, what memories do you have from your childhood?
We came here as refugees. I say that now, but we really just thought of ourselves as immigrants.
Yes.
We knew that we came from another country, but we were young kids, and we fell into the education system just like any other child. The interesting thing is that my father, because he's from Nigeria and my mother's from Liberia, when we came to the United States, he told us that he didn't want us to speak Igbo. He wanted us to speak only English. So we grew up speaking only
Excuse
English.
me, did you had any English teaching in your home? In Nigeria?
Yes.
Yeah, both of you?
Yeah.
You're too young to...
Yeah, Nigeria was colonized by the
Sure,
British,
sure.
so the language in schools,
The language in schools was
English. So I learned English in school.
You had to start from
So I started
zero.
from zero.
So probably you felt a little...
So, like I said, we consider ourselves to be immigrants. We knew that we're from another country, but for all intents and purposes, we consider ourselves Americans, American immigrants. During the end of the war, and when we were first in the United States, the war was still going on. So my father could not communicate with his brothers and sisters in Nigeria. There was no way to get through to them. It wasn't until probably 1972 until he was able to reconnect with his siblings in Nigeria. But we knew, and we always were hoping that we would be back in contact with them. And then as a child, we went back to Nigeria.
Yeah?
Yeah, from time to time, just to see how things were.
Including you?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
so we met our
interesting.
cousins. We
Yeah?
met.
How it was to meet
It was
with them?
beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
We we got to Nigeria, and the first time we went back was in 1978. I'd never heard of a guava before. And we had huge guava trees in the compound, and I think me, my brother, and sister probably got sick from eating too much guava. It was delicious.
Do you have memories from attending the church here in the States?
Yes, we went to.
Actually, I don't know in what city or what area. Of the
We came to the United States and we moved to New York. So we worshipped at the Ephesus Church in Manhattan, and then we moved to upstate New York, and we went to a small town called Liverpool, New York, outside of Syracuse, and then we started going to the Mount Carmel Seventh-day Adventist Church. That is the church where I essentially grew up from 10 years old until I went to college, and we did Pathfinders, we were in the choir, we did multiple things in the church. That was the church that we grew up in.
So basically you didn't have a feeling that you are an outsider? Or
No, I don't think so. We considered ourselves to be Americans.
Yeah. Good. What about your schools?
I went to high school in Liverpool, New York, and then I went to college in Howard University, and then I went to medical school also at Howard University. So that was 8 years in Washington, D.C. And then I moved back to New York to do my residency.
When and how the idea of becoming a doctor came to you?
So the story that my parents tell is that they always used to tell me that we're nurses, but we want our children to be doctors. And so I remember when I was in first grade, people were going around and saying what they wanted to be.
Really?
And at that point, I was essentially brainwashed that I was going to be a doctor. And so a child was going around and said, "Oh, I'm going to be a nurse." I said, "Why do you want to be a nurse? You should want to be a doctor."
You're already a promoter.
So it's a funny story, but I've always wanted to be a doctor.
No change of mind, no hesitations
Never,
along.
never. And by the time I realized that I had a gift for taking care of people.
You realized, how did you realize that?
You know, when people got hurt, or when people were having problems or medical problems, I would always attentively listen to see what the doctor was doing and to kind of see what interventions they would do. So that was always important to me. And then obviously when I studied chemistry in college, I was thinking about, okay, how can I use this to take care of other people? And of course, by the time I got to medical school and I was on the wards, I was really very intent on taking care of patients.
Wonderful. And now you have your own children.
Yes, we do. Yes,
Do you also brainwash them into becoming doctors?
He has tried, it's not working.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, we have one child who's in college, one who is graduating from high school, and a ninth grader. And they like computers, they like engineering. We'll see what they want to do in the future.
I know. The first one is a senior in college. He's studying computer science.
I see.
And then the middle one wants to study biomedical engineering.
Oh, a related field,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
But not so much in connection with the patients,
Correct.
more
So
with the technical issue, equipment and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So,
We've been blessed. Our boys, since we came to Atlanta, have gone to Adventist schools for most of their educational career. And I think we've been blessed that they've had a very positive outlook.
Yeah. It was important to us. We hear our parents talk about the experiences they had in those Adventist high schools and nursing schools. Very beautiful. And they don't forget it. You know, they met, each other. They met in school as well. And they have such good memories, such good they talk about it, they light up. You know, they're like on fire, excited and happy. And we always tell ourselves, oh, wow, we don't have that. And so we made a decision years ago to at least put our children through Adventist education. And, you know, so far, it's been working. We thank the Lord for that. And so the Lord has helped us, you know, so far. We're grateful.
Excellent. I have a problem. Boys, my clock has stopped. I have no idea what's the time. In Romanian, we have a saying, when you are happy, the clock, can you make it work again? So we, wow.
Okay.
So we have 18 minutes left just. But we don't know if it will work, if it's the battery is not going to work any longer.
It started ticking again.
It was ticking?
Yeah, it's ticking now. Okay.
Good. Yeah. We'll start again. Something very important was not said yet. How did you come to meet each other, to make a family?
So, in 1992, I finished medical school. And like I said, from time to time, our parents, our family would go back to Nigeria. And so, as a graduation gift, they took me back to Nigeria. And it was just nice. I was meeting my cousins and meeting other people. And I met my wife during that period of time.
I see. That's all? So clinical?
Yeah.
I think you have a little more to say.
So the interesting thing is that my mother was visiting the United States at the time. She was here for a year. So I received a letter through them. I didn't know them, of course, through his father. So it was a letter written to me, care of Dr. Patrick Onyeije.
From your mother?
From my mother. And then my mother was explaining in the letter that Chuck's parents had spoken to her, and they were interested in having their sons meet some young women, in Nigeria to see, make friends with some and then begin to communicate with some of them. So she said they had inquired about me, and they would like to make arrangements for the two of us to meet. And so I read the letter. I don't know who they are, so just the name. And my father brought the letter to me, but I never met them at the time. So I read the letter, and I remember, as a young woman, growing up in an Adventist family, and marriage has been important to me. So actually from high school, interestingly, I'd been praying for myself. And I remember praying quite a little bit more when I was in nursing school. My culture, young women marry. They marry really very young.
So you were already beyond the usual.
Correct. Some of my cousins were already married, right around high school.
Yes.
But my father said he wanted all of us to go to school and to marry after, some postgraduate.
Some direction from the family.
Yeah, correct. Yes,
Yeah.
after some postgraduate education, he was okay with him, if we wanted to get married. And so I was praying for myself a little bit more, and then in my culture too, you get suitors, so people come to ask for your hand in marriage. That was already happening to me from high school. And that was when my father made the decision that no, he didn't want any of his 4 girls to marry so young. He wanted us to get some education first, And so I was praying in that line, when the time comes, please, Lord, let me know, who you have chosen for me. And so when I received the letter, I remember praying to God and saying, let me know, I don't know who they are, but let me know if you have plans for me, and if there's one of the sons, because there are 2 of them. I didn't know them, but let me know which one, if you have anyone for me from the
Excuse me,
family.
were you aware of that plot?
I was aware.
Approving it?
I didn't approve of it, to be honest with you. I didn't see myself as a suitor to go and meet someone. You know, like I said, I grew up in the United States, and I was going to Nigeria as, you know, for recreation, for to
meet
relax before I
family,
started my
yeah.
internship. So, and you know, my parents told me, well, maybe you can find someone and you can be a pen pal. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to be a pen pal when I'm starting my internship. Okay, no problem. But when I met Chichi, it was just different. It was different. I didn't want to be a pen pal with her anymore.
Yeah.
So you I mean, these are your first impression. You liked her
Absolutely.
from
We
the
went to
beginning.
church. I met at her school, and then we went to church that
Weekend.
Sabbath, and then we had a long conversation, a very long conversation, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, I would really like to marry this person, and the more I thought about it, the more I said, you know, I really would like to marry this person, and so, you know, it's Nigeria, so I'm thinking, well, if I go back to the United States after I met her and I had a wonderful time with her, who knows? Maybe she'll find someone else and
Wow,
she'll
you're already
move on to
anxious
someone else.
about losing her. So
Yeah.
what is your side of the story?
Well, they met me. I was in the midwifery school at the time, and then I was asked that some people were looking for me. So I was called out of my classroom. So I came and saw them, but I didn't know who they were. So until his father introduced himself, that I remember the letter that my mom sent.
How long has been between receiving the letter and meeting them?
4 weeks.
Ah,
It was like
short
a
time.
month or 6
Yeah,
weeks, something like that. Yeah, it was
Short
a long time.
You see, it's a long
Yeah. Well, no, because, you know, usually people from the United States visit for like 2-3 weeks and they return. So I was thinking in my head, they had gone back to, to the United States. I'm like, oh, nothing will come of it, you know? And so I was kind of surprised when his father introduced himself, like, oh my, you know? And I remember my prayer, you know, like, Lord, you know, if there's something here for me, let me meet them. And so I had concluded they were gone. And I was like, oh, there's nothing, you know, and nothing to worry about. And then when he introduced himself, I was like, I could not believe it. So I remember going home that day and praying again and saying, Lord, if this person, and interestingly, they came with you alone. So I did not meet his brother. And so I said, you know, if this person is for me, let me meet them, let me meet him again, you know, have an opportunity to see him again. And so I was surprised. I didn't know that his father had arranged with my dad because he requested to come to our church to worship with me. And then, so they came that Saturday. And I was surprised to see them at the church. And
It was also love at first sight.
yeah, I kind of knew God was leading just
Really?
because of the way I was praying and how things were kind of unfolding. And so we had a long conversation after Sabbath dinner that day. And our parents left us, you know, together, so we had some time to talk and ask about each other. And then eventually, this was Saturday, and then he returned to my school on Monday morning and proposed marriage to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was 25 years ago.
What did you do with your brother? You had a fight to decide.
The funny thing is that my brother and sister had already come to Nigeria and gone back.
Oh,
I stayed in Nigeria.
that was
for,
your plot.
Yeah. Oh, my plot. They stayed for about 3 weeks. I stayed for about 7 weeks. So
So on Saturday you meet, you have a long conversation, and on Monday you return and ask her.
yes.
Wow.
My wife said, if this happened to my child, I'd first want to ask them, were you praying? Because she was praying, and after I met her, I was praying. And it became so clear to me that this was the person that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with.
And you didn't change your
I
mind.
did not change my mind.
So what was your reaction?
I was was kind of surprised.
Surprised, kind of.
Yeah, I was.
Not
You know.
100%.
Yes, I was. I was very surprised,
Very
really.
surprised.
Because I knew that I was getting some clear direction from God, but the whole proposal thing took me by surprise. First of all, it was quick.
Yes, absolutely.
Very, you know.
Even for Nigeria.
Even for Nigeria.
Correct. You know, it was very sudden. And I remember saying yes. But then after he left,
She
and
had
I was
second thoughts.
thinking, huh? What did I just do? You know, and
Am I committed already?
yes, and then I went home. I had to speak to my father. You know, the culture is different, because my concern too was like I didn't really like ask my dad, didn't talk to my dad, and I felt, you know, a little bit uneasy about it. Yes, and then when I spoke to him that day, he was very pleased.
Yes.
That took me by surprise. And later I found out my parents and his parents went.
Were you disappointed?
They were in it together.
Were you disappointed when you learned about the backstage?
I wasn't
No.
disappointed, but it was interesting because I was like, huh? did they just plan all this? And I wasn't aware, you know. But so it was nice. It was a big relief when my father gave his consent, and then we got married a few months later.
A few months later.
Yes, sir.
That was in Nigeria.
Yes.
Yes.
And then it took some time for you to solve the paperwork. And,
Yeah, it took about
9 months.
9 months. Yeah, and I was here.
It was for you briefly, our time is almost up, how it was for you to readjust to the American life?
It was challenging.
Challenging.
It was New York, so different culture.
And your husband was in
He was
intern at that time?
correct. He was beginning his second year of residency when I came.
Residency.
So he was always busy, gone. You know, most of the times.
And you're alone? No
alone
friends,
in an
no fa-
apartment. So it's like,
Wow.
yes. So that was challenging.
challenge.
That was challenging. I missed home a lot at the time too. I remember I used to be a little bit emotional too, and I'll have to call my parents and speak to them, my siblings, you know, and speak to them. But you know, over time we adjusted.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. We thank God.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, doctor, what is your specialty?
I'm a maternal fetal medicine specialist. So I'm an OBGYN,
Yes.
an obstetrics and gynecology specialist, who takes care of pregnant patients with medical problems.
What kind of problems?
So we deal with patients who have high blood pressure, diabetes, patients who have HIV, patients who have autoimmune diseases like lupus. So most of these patients are pregnant, but their medical problems are above and beyond what a normal OBGYN would do. So we take care of the patients in terms of their medical problems.
What are the risks for a pregnant woman if she has like high blood pressure and diabetes?
So for diabetes, the main issue is that the babies can become very large. So there's a condition called macrosomia, where the baby is getting the extra blood sugar through the placenta, and the blood sugar acts as a growth hormone to the fetus. So the baby becomes much larger than expected. So a baby that's 9 pounds, 10 pounds, 11 pounds.
Very difficult for delivery.
Very difficult
And
to
also it's something which will affect the child on long term.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. And so we know that by controlling the patient's blood sugar, by putting them on a special diet, and having them take blood finger sticks so they can check what their blood sugars
Regularly.
are. By controlling that, we can reduce the baby's growth rate and decrease the number of complications during pregnancy.
Well, when that happens, obviously, pregnant women need specialized help. Is anything to say for younger women who are not yet pregnant? When is the time to prepare for that,
Correct.
to get ready for that?
Well, that's what
like a person like that should do.
Correct. So that's actually what we do as well. We do preconception counseling. So patients who come in who want to have a healthy pregnancy, they come to us, and we put together a formula for the things that they should do before they become pregnant. So obviously, avoiding fried foods or eating more fruits and vegetables, lowering the glycemic index, which is the amount of blood sugar that you
Upsurge.
that comes when you eat food. So doing those things reduces the risk of complications during pregnancy. For patients who have high blood pressure, anything that you can do to reduce your blood pressure before you become pregnant is going to translate into better pregnancy outcomes once you become pregnant. So you can control your blood pressure either with medications or with just walking or reducing your weight. All those things will reduce your blood pressure before you become pregnant, and they reduce the risk of complications after you become pregnant.
So preventing a situation like that is
Yes.
very, very important.
Absolutely.
Many times, even nowadays, a woman could be pregnant for a while without being sure about it.
Absolutely.
But the diabetes or high blood pressure are already influencing the fetus.
Yeah, it's interesting
before
because
they know that.
a lot of times if a patient becomes pregnant, the metabolism is getting ready for the pregnancy that's going to come in 9 months. And so things like her blood volume or her the kind of chemical changes in the blood will be there even before she knows she's pregnant.
Yeah. Well, maybe on a future occasion we'll discuss more on that.
Sure.
How do you see your life now here in your relation with God, with the church? And what are your leading goals and values at this time?
Well, hopefully people can see from our story that we've been blessed. We came from a war-torn country. I left that country. She went through the war, but we've been blessed. We were brought together. Some people would say miraculously.
Yes.
But God has blessed us. And so we see the need to try and bless other people the way God has blessed us. So whether it's taking care of patients as she does, taking care of pregnant patients, or me taking care of patients as well. We love the church that we go to. We love the church schools that we support with our kids. And we see it as something that's important to continue to bless people the way God has blessed us.
Do you also find ways to support your country of origin in any way?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So my home church is in a village called Isialangwa. And so I support that church because it's been instrumental in terms of where I am today.
Thank you so much for sharing very, very interesting and heartwarming stories and giving us such an interesting perspective on a country many Romanians, including myself, know very little about, except of what we see in the headlines. But your story is more real. Thank you so much. May God continue to bless you in your family life, in your relation with Him, and in your way of helping other people, passing on the precious heritage you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.